kickstart that new idea that you've got.
Microsoft Reactor connects you with the developers and startups that share your goals.
Learn new skills, meet new peers, and discover the latest in technology.
Events are running around the clock, so join us anytime, anywhere.
Reactors are communities to connect. We want you to meet real developers and entrepreneurs just like you. Here you can get skilled up and learn from our product experts in the Microsoft Cloud and in open source. So watch us on demand and share your own perspective as we live stream in communities all around the world.
Good morning, good afternoon from wherever you are joining us today. My name is Rashmita and I am the event planner for Microsoft Reactor India. I welcome you all to another episode from the AI Spark series. Let's welcome our speakers, Lee and Shreyan, who will host this series. But before we start the session, I would request you all to read our code of conduct. We are all here to learn together, so please be respectful of other people's views, understanding of differences, be kind and considerate in the way you engage. The chat section will be open throughout, and we do encourage you all to participate. Our speakers will answer all your questions during the session, so please feel free to drop all your questions in the chat section. Let me bring in Lee and Shreyan into the stream, and thank you all once again for joining us. There you go.
Morning, everyone. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. So thank you for joining today's session. This is part of the AI Spark series. I'm Lee Stott, I'm a Principal Cloud Advocate Manager at Microsoft, and I'm joined by Shreyan. So Shreyan, would you like to give a quick introduction of yourself?
Sure, thanks, Lee. Hello, everyone. I'm Shreyan, and I work as an executive developer at KPMG India. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to this series now.
Great. So this is a part of a series, so it's a wider series. And today we're going to be covering the Microsoft AI Toolkit for Visual Studio Code. Specifically, we're going to be talking about evaluations and how to choose the best model for your application needs. If you're interested in accessing any of the previous series, please click on the QR code. That will take you to our series page, and you can see what other sections have been available in this series so far. So let's get started with today's session. As I said, this is part of a wider series. So on the 13th, we talked about an introduction to AI Toolkit. So AI Toolkit is a brand new tool from Microsoft, which is a Visual Studio Code extension. And we walked you through the features that are available. Today, we're going to go a bit more in depth with those features, and we've got some great demos. On the 27th of February, we gave you a short introduction to SLM, so small language models. And we talked about how to utilize those models within AI Toolkit and use services like OLAMA and develop some use cases that built upon those small language models. On the 13th of March, we talked about RAG, so retrieval augmented generation, the ability to bring data and content into your existing solution, utilize a large language model or a small language model to then query that data to bring back relevant content. On the 27th of March, we talked about multimodal. So this is the ability to support things like text, audio, video, and image within your actual large language models. And today we're going to cover evaluations. So evaluations are a really key part of understanding why are we building these solutions. Just because we can build it, should we build it? And then also, how do we evaluate those models to understand, are we using the right model? Is it the best model for the choice? And also for that discussion with our business decision makers. So why are we using that model? How we evaluate that model based on things like groundedness, relevance, and coherence to ensure that our solution is the best solution. And then in the 24th, we'll talk about agents and agent services. So we're giving you a comprehensive overview of the entire platform and how to use Microsoft AI Toolkit to really help you build those localized solutions. So let's talk about evaluations. Today, we're going to be covering a few things. So we're going to talk about bulk run demos, where we look at what is a bulk run, how to run a bulk run. So this is a process where we batch things up and then run that actual evaluation. We've got some demos around that. We're going to talk about evaluation functions. So what are those processes that you need to do to complete an evaluation. We're going to give you some use case examples of, where should you use evaluations? And of course, you should be evaluating everything you build. You shouldn't just be building things and shipping them. It should be build, iterate, evaluate, build, iterate, evaluate, as you go through what we call that Gen AI or LLM ops lifecycle. Then we'll talk about some use cases and then how to actually do evaluations. And of course, we're going to have lots more demos around how to do evaluations within the actual AI toolkit. So first of all, let's look at what an evaluation is. These are some of the key areas that you need to consider when running evaluation. So number one, we want to decide or understand the accuracy and the quality of the model. So how well does this model perform? There's hundreds and thousands of models. So within the Azure Foundry and GitHub model catalog, we have over 1,800 models. So first of all, we need to decide which model should we utilize. Why is this model better than another model? Again, evaluations and benchmarks are that key understanding of how does that model perform on the prompt or task we want it to undertake. We have to think about the safety and the robustness of the model. So this is things around how does it react to jailbreaking? How does it react to content safety? When we give it an adverse prompt, how does the model respond to that adverse prompt? Again, this is really about that trustworthy of us as developers building AI solutions, but also the organizations we work for. We want to have safe and robust models and implementations so that the customer experience is the best. Again, the next one is really around interpretability. So it's like, how is that model being utilized? What methods are we using to ensure that the predictability of that model is correct? And how does the model understand it? And then we talk about those evaluators, so the generalization. So how well does it perform? And again, we have a set of metrics, again, about that groundedness, coherence, and relevance. And we have an index score from 0 being very bad to 5 being excellent on how well does that model perform. Again, human alignment, how well is that interpreted by a human? This is what we call the groundedness and coherence. Does it make sense? Is it relevant to the data that we're actually training the model upon? Again, things like bias and fairness. How does that model interact with the data we provide it? Is it taking bias from that data? Is it taking bias from the information we've added as a RAG model? Is the model not indexed correctly? And of course, it's all about the efficiency and scalability of that model. Once we have that solution in place, how well is it performing? How do we iterate? How do we retrain? How do we redeploy? So there's some of the key aspects that we're going to dive into around these solutions. So the real key things for evaluation is around, number one, performance of the verification. We want to perform a solution. We want to run an evaluation which gives us key performance indexes and metrics. We want those metrics to be able to be understood from a developer's perspective, but more importantly, from an organization and from a business decision maker's perspective. How well is this model doing? What are the key indicators? So how well does it score? And then how do we go on to actually implement it? Again, there's things like bias detection and mitigation, which are part of what we call our responsible AI framework. So this is about content safety, content protection, and all the models that we're going to be utilizing throughout these demos, and all the models that are available on the Azure AI Foundry and the GitHub model catalog have to go through some form of safety and reliability assessment. Microsoft uses a third-party provider to undertake this work, and we really want to ensure that you as developers are building safe, responsible, and trustworthy AI systems and solutions. You understand that Microsoft has validated those data assets, so the actual models themselves, so the language models. They've gone through some form of security compliance. We have clearly indicated that this is a trusted model, and then the model is then deployed within the marketplace. So some of the common types of evaluation. First of all, we look at those benchmarking things. So there's various organizational, compliant systems out there. So MMLU, Big Bench, Blue, Rogue Score, etc., which are industry benchmarks. So Blue is bilingual evaluation understanding. This is a really popular metric that really looks at the key overlaps of the Ngram algorithm. So how well does the model perform and what is the context that comes out? There's other ones like GLEU, so GLEU, which is the general language understanding. So again, this is about sentence level constructs. So the actual prompt that comes back, so your agent prompt that comes back, or your system prompt that comes back to you, how well is that structured? Is it sentence? Is it easy to understand? Is it human interpretable? And these are really key in ensuring that your models have suitable benchmarks to align back to those scores. So we want a coherence, groundedness, and relevance score at the maximum level to ensure that the user can interpret it and utilize that effectively. Again, we want to carry out robust checks, so things like adverse checks, so content safety management. We want to make sure that the system cannot be jailbroken, that images can't be produced that have bias or, hurtful content or harmful content in it. And again, it comes down to that human evaluation. So we can either do this machine-based. So again, a lot of the things that we're going to be showing today is that automated evaluation, but there's a human in the loop. So we're going to be showing you how, as a human, we're taking that data and those metrics and understanding how does that actually relate to the solution. And again, because this is a non-deterministic system, LLMs, we can give it a prompt and it can give us different prompts back. We'll understand that, and we'll demonstrate that these are non-deterministic. We give it a prompt and we can get a different result just on how we prompt and which models we utilize. And again, we'll look at how we actually implement this in the real world. So as I said, part of our process is what we call LLM ops, so large language model operations, or Gen AI ops. And what we want to do is this: monitor, evaluate, and then implement. And again, this is now being utilized in loads of real world situations, because we're in the world of Gen AI now. We've got self-driving cars, so like things like Tesla and Polestars. We've got AI-based robot augmentation systems. So, we've got robots on manufacturing and picking lines who are using these real world iteration, evaluation, retraining models as they go through their implementation. So let's look at AI Toolkit. So as I said, AI Toolkit is a new extension for Visual Studio Code. So if anybody is using the Visual Studio Code editor, you can go to the extensions, search for AI Toolkit, and you can install the AI Toolkit. This is a purpose-built extension purely to build AI solutions within Visual Studio Code, and it links to tools like Olama, etc. We're going to focus today on the tooling section, which is called the tools plane in AI Toolkit. And we have the following options. We have a playground. So you all should be familiar with the playground. The playground is the ability to choose a language model, or a large language model or a small language model from a catalog. So whether this is Hugging Face, GitHub, Azure, etc., and to interface with that model. So you can have a chat, you can see what the results are that come back. We then have a prompt builder. So the prompt builder is what it says. It allows you to build prompts. So these are prompts that are the system meta prompts for your agent or your task or your action or your application. We then have the bulk run. So the bulk run is that ability to run these iterations and evaluations. And then we have the evaluation section where we're going to actually build out what evaluation and what metrics we want to use. And then, of course, we have fine-tuning to fine-tune our language models to become very specific. So if we go back to, where does fine-tuning sit? We start off at the very top with prompt engineering. So that fits with prompt builder. We then move into RAG. So we add augmented, so retrieval augmented generation. We add data to our model. So we've got a prompt, we add data to it. That's the RAG area. And then the very bottom of the curve is the fine-tuning. So the very bottom funnel, fine-tuning. Fine-tuning is at the bottom because it's more, you need to have higher skill levels to undertake this. And it's also much more expensive because we're actually fine-tuning the model, and we need to have that data to be able to fine-tune a model. So we need to create synthetic data or utilize real data. And again, going back to what I was saying before about trustworthy AI, the data which we add into models changes the baseline model. So if we use bad data to fine-tune our model, or data that contains personal identifiable information or biased information, we are changing the fundamental of the model, which then goes back to, why do we need to run evaluation again? Because we've changed the model's construct. We've changed that baseline model. So this is really key to think about. Again, what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be looking at the playground and being able to run those evaluations. We're going to run bulk run evaluations, and then we're going to go into a bit more depth around the evaluations itself. So let's start off with a quick demo of bulk run. So Shreyan, do you want to share your screen and take us through what the bulk run process looks like?
Yeah, sure. So hello everyone. Here we are again in the AI toolkit window. I think majority of you are very much familiar with this. We have been looking at this interface right from the first day of our series, AI Sparks. So right now, what we will be doing is I'll walk you through prompt builder and bulk run, and we'll see a demo. How do we generate a synthetic data set that will be used for my evaluation later? Right. So to begin with, let's just get familiar with the scenario as well, right? So what am I going to do here today? So many of the times you might be familiar that we'll have to generate content-rich block titles and things for our search engine optimize or SEO content, right? So how about getting a virtual assistant for that and having a prompt? Does it sound exciting? So that's what we are planning to do now. So I'll be creating a virtual assistant for all of us, which will and that will generate the data set for us, right? So to begin with, I'll choose this prompt builder in the tools section. For those of you who are new to this, you can go to here extensions and you can just search for AI toolkit and you can download this particular extension that I'm using, right? So now since I have it downloaded, I'll open it and these are my models that are available. This is the catalog where you can see search for new models. As Lee mentioned, we have plethora of GitHub models and you can use your Olama models and things like that from AI Toolkit. So then we have tools where we have playground. We have been through this a lot. So I'm skipping it for now. And then we have prompt builder. So now in prompt builder, I'm choosing my model that is OpenAI GPT-4o Mini, which is being leveraged through GitHub models here. And here I have to generate a system prompt. Now, as humans, although it is a very simple English language that we use to communicate with these LLMs or SLMs, but many of the times we miss some specifics that are needed, right? So to assist us with that, what AI Toolkit provides us is the AI generated prompt builder, right? So you can click on this generate prompt and you can see a small window popping up here, right? So in this, what I will do, I have a two-liner that I've written as my prompt and I will just paste it here, right? So it's very simple. You are an advanced SEO assistant. Your task is to generate optimized content, keywords, and metadata for the websites to improve their search engine rankings. A very simple English statement that I've written. And now let's wait and see the magic that you can witness here on this AI toolkit, wherein it will generate a new prompt for you. As I was speaking, even faster than I completed my statement, there was a prompt ready for you here. And this is the prompt that I have now, right? It says system prompt, generate optimized content. And as you can see, my prompt was just two-liner, but here it has a brief outline of what should the assistant do, how should it behave. So this is like a step-by-step instruction that we are kind of prompting, or I would say giving to this language model, right? So it says optimized content, keywords, how should it be, what is the criteria, what are the steps it should take, what should the output format look like, what are the examples, a few short example here, right? So example one, this is how it should be, example two, and so on and so forth. So if you want to provide more examples to this, what we can do is I will just let me ask a question here. How do I generate for my blog, right? Title, let's give it that. And I'll just run this code. And now what it will do is it gives me the steps that I have to follow. Right? So you can see it's generating this. So many of the times we say that, okay, why do I need to tweak my prompt? Why cannot I just go ahead and generate my data set, right? So if your prompt is not proper or if your prompt is not up to the mark, it might indirectly affect your bulk run process, wherein the data generated might not be accurate in case of synthetic data generation. And as a result, your evaluation will fail, right? So keep all this streamlined. We'll have to start from the very basic, that is your prompting. So anyway, we have the answer here. now what I want to do is I want to add this as example 2. As we saw earlier, there was only one example that our prompt generator gave, example 1 of organic gardening tips. So now I have one more of coming up with a rich title content for my blog, right? So I'll just click here this button. As you can see, use response as prompt assistant. For those of you who want to just go ahead with coding aspect here, you can just click on view code and you can choose the library that you want. So let's say this one is what I choose, and you can see that there's a Python code that is generated for you. For now, I'll just append this to my prompt, right? So as you can see, it is ready. So now what I will do, I'll combine these two and I'll create a new file. Okay. So to do that, I will again create a new file here and I will just name it
So
txt,
why are you
right?
just renaming this, Shreyan? So what we've done here is we've used generative AI to create your initial prompt, which
Yes.
So going back to our scenario, we're creating an SEO assistant that's going to create content and SEO optimized for our blog content. So I want to write a blog on X. It's going to utilize that rule to create a blog which is SEO optimized. We then gave it some additional rules because we know what we want to write a blog. So we gave it that extra prompt, which then gives us those additional rules, and that's going to be our stage 2. So it's going to look at how to create optimized content, then how to actually write a blog and what needs to be included in that blog.
Yes, that's exactly what we did. And just to add on, so what I did more is I wanted to give more examples to this LLM while it is generating my data set in the bulk run. I wanted to be more aware of what I want to do. So I just executed my LLM with this particular prompt and I generated another response. So which now I will be appending back to the prompt. That's what I will do. So from the initial system prompt, let me copy this and I will paste it here as it is. Right, so I've just created a prompt file here wherein I've just named it as prompt for SEO.aitk, that stands for AI toolkit.txt. And here I have just copied and pasted the prompt that I had. So now, as I told, I want to append my prompt, right? So let me just create one more and let me just add it as example 2. This is not a mandatory step, but it's a good to have step because the more richer your prompt is, the more better your responses are for sure. So what was my input? So let me just type in input and let me just paste my prompt. Right. So I'll go back to my prompt builder. My input was this. So I'll get back here and I'll paste it here. So this is my input. And now I have my output that is again coming from my prompt builder, and I'd added it to my assistant prompt. So I'll just copy that whole thing and I've kept it here. So now my system prompt that I will be using to generate my synthetic data set in my bulk run is ready, right? So next comes the very interesting part. How do we generate the data set? So now we go to the next tool of AI toolkit, that is bulk run. That's what Lee was talking about all this while. How do we generate the data set and things like that? So here again, I will choose the same model, OpenAI GPT-4o Mini, and here is where you have something called as a system prompt, right? So in the system prompt, just get the prompt that we have just curated, right? All this while what we just did, I'll get that prompt and I will paste it here. Since I want to pass it in a query variable, what I will do is I will create a query variable here. All right. So my query variable is ready and I have to give a schema now. So how do I want my data set to look like, right? So if I just randomly generate a data set, it might not fit in the parameters or like the way it should be prepared for a particular, like the evaluation criteria. So to do this, what I have done is I have defined a JSON schema. So let's go through what this JSON schema looks like, right? So I have given the name. It's a very simple name, SEO title generator. And I've given the description here. It's what it is doing. And then a very basic keyword, like what do I need in this, right? And what are the required fields, right? How do I want it to look like? What should it generate? right? So topic, keywords, and title. So after this, I've just given the additional properties as false and so on and so forth, right? So I've just defined my criteria here very well, straightforward, and I will just upload this in my bulk run section. So here I'll just choose the JSON schema, and I can just click on prepare schema. If you want to prepare one, you can prepare it right away. And if you want to upload one, you can upload one, right? So I'll just select my local file. That is this one I have, and let's open. Right, so that is it. I'm pretty much done here. And the next option is where the magic works again. And I'll just click on generate a data set.
So
And
while
now,
that's generating a data set, Sharon, some great questions in the chat about, what does AI Toolkit work on? So just to stress to everybody, AI Toolkit is available for any platform. So for Windows, Mac, and Linux, all you need to use is VS Code as your IDE, so as your development environment. Go to extensions, and then you can install AI Toolkit. Sorry, Sharon. So what you just did there was really cool. You clicked a button while I just gave that quick overview. But what we actually did was use synthetic data. So as part of Microsoft, what we're doing is providing now generative AI solutions within our tools that allow you to create generative synthetic data. So this is not real data. This is false data, but the data is designed to match our prompt and input. So we have the system prompt of what we wanted to do, so that SEO instructions and how to create SEO content. Then we asked it to create a query based on that resource and create back some sample titles for blogs, and then run those against the evaluation. So what we have here now on the query side are sample subject titles for blogs. So back to you, Shayan.
Yes, that's right, Lee, and that's what we have, the sample title blocks, that block titles. You can see what can be them. Now you can see there is no response yet, right? So what it did all this while, it went through my JSON schema. The schema is basically like a mind map, or I would say like a map for the LLM to understand how should it generate the data, right? For those of you who might have been, like a little worried of what this JSON schema was, it is, I would say, very basically like a map. How should your data look like? How should it be for the further steps? Or how should, you're just telling the LLM that this is how you should generate the data. Now, since I did that, I generated a data set. Although my data set is ready, but there has not been a response generation yet. How should my response look like? So to do that, what I will do, I'll just click on run. You can either click on run all, right? I would not do it here because again, I'm using a free subscription. GitHub Models for you is absolutely for free to use, right? But there is a restriction on that. So there is a particular token limit on all your calls. So because of that, I'm just executing it one by one. So since it's 3, I can also do a run all, but I just wanted to highlight this point that there is a token limit. So be very careful when you're using this. So you can see the first part is ready, topic and all the other part. This is where the response is the section where your JSON schema is being used and not in the query, right? So as you can see, it says topic and there's a question and there's an answer, and then you have a hint, right? So there are 4 sections which are defined in my schema. So you can change it as long, however you want it to be, right? So here you can add a few more titles, you can add something else that you want. It is completely on how you want this bulk run to create your data set that you'll use for your evaluation, right? It's completely to your use case. So right now I have my data set ready. The next part is to export it. So that is also very simple for me. And if you want to add more data to this, or you want to do something around that, what you do is you can come here, you can click on these 3 dots on the top right hand side, and you can, if you want to regenerate, you can go ahead and do that. Or if you want to edit the generation logic, right? So if you want to edit something in the system prompt, you're welcome to do that as well. Or if you want to generate more data, let's say I have 3 rows here. If you want more rows, you can click on generate more data and it will do it for you, right? So now the final step for me is to export this particular data set that I have generated now. So I'll click on export and I will just name it as, let's say, output1.jsonl, and JSONL is already there. So it should be stored in a JSON line format, which I'll talk about when I'll go through the evaluations part. So for now, just store it in JSONL format and click on save. And that's it. We are good to go. And our data set is ready now. So the next part is where we evaluate. Back to Lee now, and then we'll get back to evaluation.
Great, thank you. So just to confirm to everyone what we did, we ran our prompt, we built our new system prompt, our new meta information. We then ran that to enhance it. We then ran it to create those blog titles. We then ran the bulk evaluation, which actually created the blog content. That's the easiest way of explaining it. That is the content based in our template. So we wanted those key assets in each of the blogs. So now we have this sample data. So what we're going to do now is actually go on to the evaluation stage. So what we're going to talk about is the evaluation function. We have our data. These are our mock. So this is synthetic data based on those blogs. We then want to understand these key aspects. So number one, we want to understand the coherence. So the coherence is basically how in a natural language has that content been created. So does it make sense? When you read it as a human, does it make sense? So that's the coherence. The fluency is around like the grammatical syntax of that text. So is it grammatically correct? Does it read like a human? Does it sound like a human? Or does it feel too robotic? So fluency is about that natural language. Then the relevance. Is this content relevant to the question we asked? Does it have like references to that? So is it relevant when we read it? Is it staying on topic? Is it diverging off topic? That's the relevance. Similarity is about how do we measure the response based to the ground truth of the model. So again, going back to that situation where we fine tune a model, this is where relevance, fluency, coherence, and similarity can be broken because we're training it with bad data. So those are the 4 key indexes that we want to look at from the model model stability is the easiest way of defining it. The next ones are really talking about industrial metrics. So we've got BLUE, which is the bilingual evaluation study, it's a really popular metric. Loads of people who are doing machine learning have known about BLUE for many years. And it really compares how close the model output is to matching reference text. And it uses an n-gram algorithm to do overlap. So how well is this constructed? The F1 score calculates the overlap of words and the balance between those words in terms of precision and recall. So again, it goes back into the fluency and the coherence. Then we have GLUE, which is a general language understanding evaluation benchmark. Very similar to BLUE, but it looks at sentence level. So instead of the entire context, it looks at each sentence individually and assesses that n-gram overlap between the sentences. So again, feeds back into coherence, relevance, and similarity. And then we have the Meteor, which is a metric for evaluation translations with explicit ordering. God, that's a bit of a mouthful. This goes beyond words itself, and it looks at the overlap of synonyms. So it looks at synonyms, repeated phrases, and again, it focuses on that precision, recall, and word count for the actual solution. So by running all these evaluations, we're checking, is this human interpretable? Does it make sense? Is it relevant to what we're doing? And does it keep to the subject? Does it keep to what we've asked it to do? So it doesn't hallucinate, it doesn't go off and talk about other things. This is really important when you're building any form of generative AI, whether it's an agent, a chatbot, an application, or a service, is we want that content to be as close as we can to that top level. So anything like 5 is our goal. When we run this, we want 5s. Again, if it doesn't come up with a 5, that's where we as developers or system engineers or technical program managers need to look at that content and go, it's a 3. Is that 3 okay? From my context, does it fit coherence, fluency, relevance, and similarity? BLUE, F1, and GLUE and Meteor, we can't really change. That's they're our algorithms that are being run. The other ones are human interpretable. So let's look at some evaluation use cases. So if we look at use cases which evaluations happen on, it should be pretty much everything. We try to give you here some scenarios, like a product development. You're building a new product. You want to ensure the effectiveness of your virtual agent, your chatbot, your automated system. Does it meet the customer needs and expectations? Academic research. There's probably lots of academics on the call. We carry out lots of academic research. is it building the solution and using those formal algorithms to give us concise and relatable scores? Business optimization, we want to optimize our models. Going back to that fine-tuning example, if we fine-tune something, does it actually improve the quality? We might have spent, tens of thousands, millions of dollars fine-tuning a model. When we run the evaluation, it might have no impact. It was like, well, that was a waste. We just spent that money. And again, that's what's really key about this, is understanding how does this actually happen. And then this really brings us on to those specific business area solutions. So if you're looking at building a healthcare application or a legal and compliance or something around creative industries or educational tools, typically we would have to think about those scenarios. So going back to what Shreyan showed us there about the prompt where he wanted these specific things in the outcome. Again, you might need to use a fine-tuned model because those specific things, a general language model knows everything about the world. It doesn't know everything about those 3 key acronyms that you use within your organization. So again, you might need to fine-tune the model and then build your test data set to ensure it understands those 3 key acronyms or understands the context of your organization. So again, when you build in your evaluation bulk run, you need to think about the questions you're asking to then deem does the context and does the model understand, and is it relatable to the actual data you're trying to ask it to do. Again, you really need to think about this. You need to do this. This is not an additional thing to do. This is something you have to do if you're building generative AI solutions. Okay, let's go into that evaluation stage. So just to reaffirm our scenario, we're building an SEO optimizer. This is to optimize blogs that are created to ensure that they're search engine indexed and optimized to get the maximum results. So back over to Shreyan.
Yeah, thanks, Lee. So again, I'll just brief what we did so far. We created a data set. Now to create the data set, we began right from the first stage where we started building our prompt, or what we call it as a system message, right? So very crucial part, I would say the key part of any generative AI development or anything is getting a right system message in place. Once we had the system message, we defined a schema, how we want the data set to look like, and then we use the system message and that new schema that we had developed to generate a synthetic data set. Now, these steps can be skipped if you have a data set that is ready for you and you want to evaluate it against it. Just make sure that you have a proper pattern in place that you can use for the evaluation, right? So now the next part is where I stopped in the previous demo that we'll evaluate it further, right? So now to begin with, we'll go to the evaluation tool again in the AI toolkit. And before creating a new evaluation, let me show you about the evaluators, right? So Lee spoke about coherence, fluency, similarity, BLEU, F1 score, and everything, right? So what if you want to create something more than this, right? So what if you want to define your own evaluator that you want to evaluate it against, right? So there can be any number of things. It can be your own custom evaluator, thing that you want to evaluate it for some condition that you have developed, right? Not matching into these parameters. So how do you do that, right? So once you go to your tools, there's something called as evaluators on the top, right? So you can click on this create evaluator and you can create your own evaluator here, right? So now what I will do, I will create something called as isJSON. Basically, this kind of validates my JSON and checks whether it is matching the JSON schema or not. I can give a description for this evaluator. What do you define it to be and how do you want it to be? And in the type, you can choose LLM based for scoring or code based for objective marks. So I'll go with the code based one. You can go with LLM based too. And then you can just add, I have to add a parameter here. I want to add it as a response. So that will be this, right? And I can click on generate my evaluator code. And you can see a Python code which is already there for you. Since I've already done it, I'm not doing it again. So you can see it here, right? So if you open evaluator code, this is how my evaluator code looks like. So you can see that score is 3. This will actually return an object with score and other optional string message you'd like to display in the result, right? So you can change this if you want to have anything else displayed on your evaluations window, right? So now I'll get back to my evaluation again. So I have my isValidJSON evaluator ready. And now it's time to do the fun part, that is to evaluate. Now this is very much crucial because when you're building GenAI applications, with LLMs or with SLMs, evaluation is a very crucial part for you to understand how is your application standing there, right? How is it? How's the quality of your application? How are the responses being generated? So many of the times, this is a very crucial step, especially in the enterprise scenario. Let's say that I'm building the SEO assistant now. I would say evaluation is very crucial for me to kind of judge whether my app is doing a fantastic job or not. So now to do that, I'll create a new evaluation. Let me name it as evaluation SEO. You can name it anything. I'm just naming it as the 10th April, right? And this is where it prompts me to choose a evaluator that I want it to be, right? So you can see again, it says what does it do. So for example, coherence, it examines the natural and logical flow of the responses, just as Lee mentioned earlier. And then you have fluency, which analyzes grammatical accuracy. Then you have relevance, how relevant your answers are to the query. I would say relevance is one of the important thing that I have seen. So I'll just go with that. All of them are, but I always relate more with relevance. And then the similarity, BLU, and all the other scores that you can see. So along with this, if you remember in the earlier step, I created a own custom evaluator. So let me just choose that as well. So ideally, it should return me a 3 if it's a good one, or if it's not, it should give me something lesser. And then relevance as graded to 5. So I've done that. So I'll click on OK. The next part is to choose the evaluation model. So you can choose any of these. I will again, since from the beginning of this demo, I was choosing GPT-4 Omni, I will go with that itself. Now, the next part is where we stopped before, right? So data set. So in the earlier case, if you recall, we had generated a data set, right? So the use of that data set comes now because that is what we will evaluate it against. So there are sample data sets that AI Toolkit provides as well. So you can choose that if you want to. But since we generated a data set for ourselves, so I will go ahead and import my data set. Again, if you can see here, it says import a JSON-L or a CSV file, right, with query and response. So if you recall in the previous step, when I stopped the demo, even Lee pointed it out, it had two sections. One was called query, other one was called response. The query had the titles and the response had the content that LLM generated, right? So I'll choose that, and let me just choose that particular data set now. So this was it, right? It is created successfully, you can see here, and it says pending. So why is it saying pending? Because there is still not, the evaluation part is still not done, right? So if I step in here, you can see it shows a new window now, or I would say a new box which says query, right? So that will have my query and a response, right? What is the response that is there? And these two things are now as marked as blank. There's a there's a nil thing parameter that is there. Now, after running the evaluation, these will be filled by our evaluators, right? So what are the evaluators that I have? Relevance and JSON. So now you can open it in Data Wrangler as well, just to visualize it more. Now I'll just run the evaluation, and in my output window, you can see that I've already started the evaluation, and you can also click on show logs. It will show you the logs once they are generated.
So while we're just waiting for logs to come, Shreyan, so just to straight away, they're starting already. They always do this. As soon as we start talking, it happens. So again, we're just showing you here two metrics, so two evaluators. We're showing you is the valid JSON, so does it meet the criteria of the sample, and the relevance. You can choose all of those. And again, we would recommend you do choose most of these because you want groundedness, relevance, coherence as a definite, you want that human interpretation. We are now in that human in the loop stage. So we're now assessing the output of what that model has given us, and we now have an index score based on up to 5. Remember, 5 is what we're looking for. 5 is maximum quality. 0 we do it again. We start again. is the ground rule. So back to you, Shreya.
Right. So even before we could fill in, we could explain everything, our evaluator was so fast and we have the answers out there, right? So I had executed 3 lines. Again, in an ideal scenario, it will be more than this. This is just for the demo. We have taken 3 lines and even the parameters are just 2. But in your real world scenario, I would recommend at least go with all the basic evaluators, and then maybe you can have your custom evaluators too. But while you do this, be very mindful. If you're using GitHub models, in that case you might hit the rate limits if you do multiple queries like these. So be very mindful of that. As a solution, you can go to Azure AI Foundry. You can have your own subscription set up there and a model, and you can use it with that, again with your AI toolkit as well, right? So here again it says what is the run name, and it did that, and it gives you all these parameters. And this is my first evaluator, is valid JSON, against which it was evaluated, and it says the time taken, completed lines, if there are any failed lines, right? So that will also be shown here, and the log, where is it being saved. Similarly for the relevance, what is the status, duration, and everything, and then it finally says that it has stored the logs here. Right. So now to see, let's see what it has done. So it says is valid JSON, average is 3, which is good because if you recall, when I was defining it in the code section, I can show you the code again. So I had set it to 3 here, right? So it is doing a good job over there. Again, like this, you can have your custom scoring metrics as well that you can do. And this is a placeholder for evaluators reason, exactly what I gave here, right? You can choose anything that you want. And then here in the relevance, it says the response fully addresses the query with accurate, complete information, and so on and so forth. You can just read through this. Similarly, we have the next place here, which says again the same thing. And here as well, you have same. So I would say I did a good job in my system prompting, because of which I can now. Yeah, we have a bullseye here. I mean, I got what I wanted, but this might not be the case for you when you're doing it in real world. So be very careful when you're doing this, right? So anything to add on, Lee?
Yeah, so I was just going to add, if you're doing this, so you're doing you've run your bulk run, you've created your data set, you've imported it, you've done your evaluations. If this comes back as like a 2, what should someone do, Shreya?
I would say beginning from the scratch is the best way, because if it is coming as 2 or even 1, I would say there are multiple loopholes that we can figure it out. But I would say first things first, get the system message right. And only with that, this data generation can be proper. And only after that, you can hit a bullseye, just like I had 5 on 5.
Yeah, no, it's very, very true. And it goes back to that, what we're talking about, that funnel. Prompt engineer at the top. Prompt engineer is the cheapest way of doing any implementation. You get good at prompt engineering, you can solve most issues, and prompt engineering is very key to building this. Then we have the RAG, so retrieval augmented generation, adding data to our prompt. Then we have our fine tuning. So again, think about it in those sequences. If you get to like that, you're always getting 1, but you're asking very specific questions, go to RAG, add some data to your data, make sure it's relevant, cohere, etc. If it still doesn't work, think about fine-tuning the model. So great, that was a great overview of how the evaluations work. Again, we didn't leave Visual Studio Code for any of this. We did our prompt, we did our bulk run, we did our evaluation, all with an AI toolkit. We utilized models from either GitHub models or from the Azure Foundry model. And again, we're using GitHub models. You did all this for free. You did your proof of concept completely free, which is amazing. So if we move back to the slides, we'll carry on. We're just closing out. So in terms of resources, again, please do download the AI toolkit. If you go to the link aka.ms/AI toolkit, all the resources are there for you to get started with it, how to utilize it, how to install it. There's a link to the docs, which is aka.ms/AI toolkit/docs. There's lots of resources around evaluations on AI toolkit on our developer blog. So on the Microsoft Azure developer blog, which is aka.ms/ms-dev community. There's 2-part series that have just gone live in the last few days. Please have a look at those. There's links back to that blog, back to this recording as well. So if you're interested in watching this later, we do have a dedicated channel in our Microsoft Discord community. So there's over 20,000 AI developers in the Discord channel, and we have a specific channel in there for the AI Spark series. So it's just discord.gg/8G4YWHHV. So that's a dedicated link directly to our channel there. And Shreyan is Kamikaze. That's your Discord name?
Yes, that's my Discord name. It's Kamikaze.
And I'm just Lee Stott. So if you're in there, you want to ask questions, please go in there. Please, we're happy to have that conversation. We're in there every day. Again, we want your feedback, your questions, your queries. And again, we've also built a dedicated AI Sparks GitHub repo purely for you getting started with AI Toolkit. So it's github.com/azure-samples/AI_toolkit_samples. And again, all the resources and demos we've shown you today are in that repo. And again, previous episodes, all the demos are in there as well. So you can go and utilize that resource. So what do we have next, Shreyan? 24th of April, we've got agents and agent frameworks, so agentic framework. So we're going to be talking about the Microsoft AI agent service. We're going to be talking about semantic kernel. We're going to be talking about autogen. And we're going to talk about how to consume and utilize those from AI Toolkit. And no doubt we might be talking about MCP, which is like the cool word of today. So Model Context Protocol and multi-agent systems. So if you're interested in learning about how to build an agent or an agentic framework system, join us on the 24th. I might even be there. Don't know yet. Need to decide. Enjoyed this one. I hope you've all enjoyed watching us. If you want to get any of the resources from the previous episodes, please do scan the QR code, and the links to the YouTube series are in the chat. And also, please do join the chat on Discord. We're open to questions. So we've got some time now for questions. So we've got 5 minutes for questions. If anybody has any specific questions, we'd love to answer those. So we've had a few in the chat around, where do we get access to this? It's the AI Toolkit. It's available on Windows, Mac, and Linux. It's completely free. This is a free solution to install. Again, we also want your feedback. So thanks for Rashmina putting the feedback slide up. Please leave us feedback around this session. Again, if you've got queries, questions, you might not be watching this live, please join our Discord. We are there. We will answer the questions. We will point you in the right direction. We're in a massive revolutionary period. Technology is changing on a daily basis. Microsoft's 50, so I'm wearing my 1980s Microsoft t-shirt, which is very, very cool, very retro, rock band. Things are moving at a tremendous rate. We're all learning. No one is an expert. I think that's a key advice to anybody watching this is no one's an expert. We're all learning. We're all learning together. So please do join our Skills Fest, which is going on at the moment, to learn more. Join our Discord and just get involved in showcasing and sharing your experiences. So huge thank you to Shreyan. Huge thank you to our producer, Rashmina. And I hope everyone's had a great day. So any closing words for you, Shreyan?
No, I think this was really good. And even I enjoyed this session. Looking forward to the agent and the next sessions that have been lined up. Also, I think we have a question from Maroof Ahmed here. Maroof says, please share features and advantages of AI Toolkit. Lee, do you want to take this up?
Oh, great question. Yeah, good spot. I didn't see that question. So advantage of AI Toolkit. Number one, it's in Visual Studio Code. So you are no longer having to leave your IDE to go off to a portal or a browser or to the GitHub Marketplace to understand what the model catalog name is. So that's probably one of the biggest advantages is number one, all the models, there's 1,800 models, all have a unique model name. We all use the same inference API, but you need to know the model name. Whereas in AI Toolkit, it's just a pick list. Like Sharon showed you, you can try it with GPT-4o, DeepSeek, whichever model you would like. So that's a huge advantage. The next one is really around that process flow. So as we've hopefully shown you today, we start with prompt builder, we go to bulk, we go to evaluation. It's in a sequential flow. And again, we go to fine tuning if you need to read a bit. Fine tuning is in the next step. So it creates that sequence of learning for you. It's completely cross-platform and it's free. So I think they're like the key things for me.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I believe it takes you through a journey of these Gen AI development life cycle, I would say, because initially you start with playground, you start experimenting with models, you compare between the results, which model is best for you. That's the first stage of evaluation, I would say, like which suits the best. And then you go ahead and you start, improvising more on the prompts. That's what we saw today, prompt builder. And then you say, okay, fine, I'm good here. I want to develop my custom code. We also saw how do you get custom code in Python developed by AI Toolkit again. And then if you want to, let's say, start with evaluations, you start with the bulk run, creating a data set or using your own data set, and then creating things according to the JSON schema, and then finally going ahead and doing your evaluations, right? So this is like the whole life cycle, I would say. And even if you're a retrieval augmented generation app developer, right? Or in short, a RAG app developer. That's what the previous session was about. So even that is being supported to you as through AI Toolkit. And personally, have been working with other platforms as well. But what I find most interesting here is that I just have to run one instance of VS Code, and everything is up and there for me. But if I have to use something else, if I have to create my machine as server, then I have to create something else, which will also consume my RAM. Along with that, I have to also run AI Toolkit and or any other coding, VS Code or any other thing, and then that will also consume my RAM, right? So than having things distributed, what it does is it streamlines everything together. And I would say that is one of the feature that I like the most of AI Toolkit. And of course, if you want tutorials as well, that is also available. So as Lee rightly mentioned, we are in a era where we are witnessing this change that is happening in AI field, right? So every day there is something new coming in. So I feel somewhere AI Toolkit will help you with its tutorials, with its things, and with its ability to try everything for free, especially for the student community. I would say getting subscriptions and everything, that is completely taken off, and you just have to apply your knowledge and get started with this.
Definitely. And I dropped in a few links, a link to the Discord channel if people are interested in joining Discord. We also have some amazing free open source curricula. So we have AI for agents for beginners, Gen AI for beginners, web dev for beginners, IoT for beginners, lots of beginner series. So if you go to the link to the agents for beginners, that links to all the other courses. But again, these are great ways of learning those fundamentals. So if you're interested in the session on the 24th, definitely check out Agents for Beginners. We'll be covering a lot of that content and going more into detail with these demos. And again, Demos Gods were with us today. Woohoo! It was really fast today, which was great.
Yes.
So huge thank you for everyone on that. And thank you to the Demo Gods.
Yes.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the 24th.
Thank you, everyone. See you all.